The 2010s saw a sea of change for the Walt Disney Company. The beginning of the decade was marked by a tremendous output of grandiose action-adventure films, a successful staple of the previous decade, but a slowly fizzling fad which saw many efforts bombing spectacularly at the box office and flailing critically. After a creative shake-up, the second half saw redeemed success with an influx of highly popular nostalgic reimaginings of classic properties, as well as big blockbusters from acquired franchises such as Marvel and Star Wars. With the company now raking in billions of dollars at the box office annually, the 2010s saw a renaissance for Disney Pictures, with Disney's 2019 rounding out as the most successful box office year for any studio in history. As the decade has drawn to a close, in this video I'll look back on the vast output from the Disney studio and rank my top 20 theatrical productions released between 2010 and 2019. In order to keep this video from being oversaturated with titles from subsidiary studios, I'll be excluding any releases from Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars, focusing solely on those from Disney proper, both live action and animated. Before we go any further, don't forget to give this video a like. It goes a long way in getting this content out there, and also weigh in with your personal 2010s Disney favorites in the comments below. At that, there's plenty to cover here, so let's get into it. Kicking us off at number 20, Frozen 2, 2019. To me, Frozen is possibly Disney's most overrated animated classic, and likewise its sequel couldn't quite win me over either. Frozen 2 tackles darker elements and a deeper, more mature exploration and examination of the world and its characters, which I highly admired. However, I also felt it lacked the risk and bravery it so had the potential to tackle. Regardless, Frozen 2 is one of the most gorgeous computer animated films of all time, with some Disney best CG musical sequences to boot. While it isn't a favourite Disney movie by a long shot, it deserves a spot on my best of the decade. At number 19, Maleficent, 2014. As an enormous fan of Walt's classic Sleeping Beauty, Maleficent is a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. While a great tribute to the original source, it doesn't shy away from putting a great new spin on it, with a willingness and bravery to reinvent and be different, something that not all the live-action remakes have been able to do. There's a lot in Maleficent that doesn't really work. It's a little slow and long-winded with some fairly soapy acting, but overall it's gripping, beautiful to look at, and highly enjoyable. At number 18, Zootopia, 2016. Again, while not a personal favourite of mine, this one finds its place on my list as one of Disney's few animated efforts of the 2010s based on an original premise. Regardless of an overly cutesy nature, Zootopia has a really great, exciting story, fun laughs, exciting sequences, and some really fantastic characters. I love its smart, sly take on the buddy cop formula, and it's exciting to see Disney tackle more modern film conventions in their animated films. Sadly, the decade's output offered very few creative risks as this. At number 17, WreckIt Ralph, 2012. Another original Disney animation which found its roots in ideas that had been kicking around at the studio for decades. WreckIt Ralph offers a fun, humorous, and meta adventure into the modern world of the like Disney hadn't really offered before. It's not a movie that screams Disney, but certainly a standout of their animated offerings of the decade, with memorable performances, electrifying sequences, and now iconic characters. While its sequel didn't fare incredibly well, proving not everything needs a franchise, the original stands as a great, unique effort of the 2010s. At number 16, Tomorrowland, 2015. For me, the most disappointing Disney flop of the 2010s, a movie that should have been so incredibly important, presenting the ideas and ideals of Walt Disney, who continuously strove for a brighter future. Tomorrowland is a gorgeously uplifting and meaningful film, touching on the plight of a peaceful humanity through the expanse of an ever-growing progressive world, featuring visceral sequences and two of the greatest original Disney characters of the decade. Sadly, due to poor edits, the movie failed to connect with audiences unaware of Walt's innovative plight of Epcot, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. For me, however, Tomorrowland is a near masterpiece and pure Disney. At number 15, The Lone Ranger, 2013. Perhaps Disney's best action-adventure in recent memory, and another disappointing flop. Using much of the Pirates' creative team, Lone Ranger puts a high-action fantasy spin on a fairly dated 80-year-old property. Though marred with cultural controversy, Depp delivers a fun, Sparrow-esque performance as Tonto, alongside Armie Hammer's fantastic take on the masked vigilante. The movie is gorgeously filmed with a ton of adrenaline-charged moments and one of the decade's greatest action sequences. This also had true potential to lead another great franchise, essentially Pirates in the Old West, but sadly couldn't find the audience connection it so deserved. At number 14, Pete's Dragon, 2016. A wonderfully refreshing Disney remake, one of very few in recent memory to reboot an already live-action property. The original, released in 1977, was a childhood favourite, however hasn't held up for me in more recent years. It's slow and honestly fairly boring. The remake, however, presents a wonderfully original modern take, filled with action, adventure, heart and great drama, with no tedious musical numbers in sight to bog it down. Performances are all fantastic, and while the original has an enormous charm in its traditional animation hybrid, the CG Elliot is more believable, leading to a movie with much larger emotional connection. At number 13, Winnie the Pooh, 2011. Proving that some stories can be continually plundered across generations, the movie offered an enchanting trip back to the 100-Acre Wood. Coming at the beginning of the decade, Winnie the Pooh is the single traditionally animated feature of the 2010s, and sadly the last currently from the studio. The animation in Pooh is gorgeous, colourful and nostalgic, but due to a shift in audience appetites and a poor advertising campaign, the movie marked the end of an era and the dawn of a new, for better or worse. At number 12, The Jungle Book, 2016. While featuring plenty of callbacks to the animation, this adaptation bends more towards Kipling's novel, working as a great reimagining of both versions. One minute it's a dark drama avoiding the animation's musical template, then the next it's stopping in its track for a classic song. Though it's arguable that Walt Disney would have liked this take, considering he was vehemently against the novel's dark tone, Jungle Book is exciting, gripping and highly entertaining with spectacular lifelike animation. The efforts to make something fairly far removed from the original while keeping its spirit alive are highly admirable. At number 11, The Lion King, 2019. Yes, at its heart, 2019's Lion King is a near shot-for-shot remake of the 1994 animated classic, finding very little breathing room for original storytelling. However, it's a movie so technologically innovative that it simply cannot be ignored. Utilizing some of the most advanced tech to provide a totally enveloping, hyper-realistic film experience, The Lion King showcases the future of cinema in a familiar little package. It's awe-inspiring and simply breathtaking, and will be looked upon as a seminal piece of filmmaking. Coming in at number 10, Pirates of the Caribbean 5, Dead Men Tell No Tales, or Salazar's Revenge, 2017. While Disney found their biggest success in the 2000s in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, the main impetus behind their all-out blockbuster slate of the early 2010s, the studio offered only 2 Pirates adventures across the last decade. Pirates 5 marked a return to form for the rapidly flailing series, with enormously exhilarating fantasy set pieces and a roster of brilliantly dynamic heroes and intriguing villains. While Depp Sparrow shows severe signs of growing stale, the movie wraps past plot threads nicely, working as a satisfying finale to a favourite franchise before it capsized completely. At number 9, Big Hero 6, 2014. Not only is this a really fantastic Disney animation, but an incredible comic book adaptation. Big Hero 6's story captures everything a great superhero story should have: family, friends, tragedy, and selflessness, but in animated form. With Disney's gorgeous animation and design, a wonderful story, great characters, epic action, thrilling moments, a lot of humor, and even more heart, Big Hero 6 is easily one of the most beautiful, exciting, captivating, and unique superhero movies out there, and one of the biggest surprises of the decade. At number 8, The Muppets, 2011. At the turn of the decade, Disney once again discovered another franchise that simply couldn't cross the generational gap. Disney attempted a few Muppet projects across the decade, but sadly saw very little success. However, this attempt to bring the sadly dated characters back into the limelight is a brilliant nostalgic romp. As all good Muppet movies, it's loaded with brilliant songs, fantastic meta humor, and enjoyable cameos and human support. While the film was successful and is easily one of the Muppets' best cinematic outings ever, its lackluster sequel proved that these characters should remain of their time. At number 7, Christopher Robin, 2018. This one plays out as a character study, tackling the age-old dilemma of growing up while retaining youthfulness, finding itself geared towards the adult audience who grew up with the Pooh characters rather than the new generation just discovering them. While it has the tendency to be incredibly dark and lacking of colour, it's largely optimistic, touching, honest, funny, tear-inducing, and incredibly moving. With a superb lead performance from Ewan McGregor and a bundle of beautiful nostalgia, it's easily one of the most surprisingly brilliant Disney releases of the 2010s. At number 6, Mary Poppins Returns, 2018. The sequel to Disney's 1964 classic is grand musical storytelling of the like we hadn't seen from Disney for decades. As a love letter to the original and to classic Disney musicals in general, Returns features a soundtrack of enjoyable tunes, charming performances, incredible musical set pieces, and an aura of pure Disney magic. While playing it fairly safe, sometimes feeling a little restrained by the original's beats and narrative, it's an enjoyable romp which finds new directions to move and new thematics to explore, becoming easily one of the most Disney movies of the 2010s. Coming in at number 5, Moana, 2016. Easily one of my favourite CG animated features, Moana has absolutely everything going for it. Amazing story, brilliant multi-dimensional characters, great laughs, gorgeous animation with stunning colours and incredibly realistic yet stylized design, and fantastic music, harboring perhaps Disney Animation's best soundtrack of the 2010s. Moana's story is touching and inspirational, with wonderful messages of self-importance and a gorgeous embrace of cultural being. It's the epitome of the heroic Disney adventure with a few twists and turns, making for one of the best original Disney adventures of the decade. At number 4, Beauty and the Beast, 2017. A stunning retelling with beautiful visual design, an overall sense of magic and enchantment, and fantastic character portrayals, capturing the beauty and charm of the original in such a wonderfully respectful and emotional way, solidifying Disney's live-action remake franchise as a studio staple. Though some took issue to Emma Watson's portrayal of Belle, I found her to be incredibly charming, and the supporting cast equally as delightful. While it doesn't take many enormous risks, Beauty and the Beast still holds up as one of my favourite live-action remakes. At number 3, Cinderella, 2015. Helping to pave the way for Disney's live-action remake trend, which led Disney's financial domination over the latter half of the decade, though dividing fans and audience, Cinderella remains the franchise's best offering. Staying incredibly respectful to the source while admirably pulling in new elements and expanding the story in inventive and brave new ways, it exemplifies the perfect way to execute a remake. With spectacular costume, set, and visual design, thanks to Kenneth Branagh's Shakespearean directorial style, an elegant, classically inspired score, and exquisite performances, Cinderella is the crown jewel of Disney's live-action fantasy of the 2010s. Coming in at number 2, Saving Mr. Banks, 2013. Telling the story behind Mary Poppins, Saving Mr. Banks captures a spectacularly wonderful and magical period of the Disney studio, in the first officially sanctioned semi-biopic of Walt Disney, even if a touch whitewashed along the way. Tom Hanks embodies Disney perfectly, capturing his very essence as if you're watching the real deal. As Pamela Travers, the author of the Poppins books, Emma Thompson is wonderful as well, both actors delivering career highlights. The movie is as magical as the period it covers, filled to the brim with charm and sentimentality, with plenty of memorable sequences and heartwarming moments. It's true life Disney magic at its finest. And coming in as my number 1 favourite Disney movie of the 2010s, Tangled, 2010. My absolute favourite CG animated Disney film. Fun characters, a wonderful story, and exquisite animation make Tangled as touching and timeless as any of the previous Disney fairy tales. It not only feels and looks at home with past classics, but sounds at home too, with a fantastic score by Disney legend Alan Menken. The movie has great humour, great heart, and great soul, and is by far the superior fairy tale animation from the 2010s, even though wildly overshadowed by the behemoth that was Frozen. It probably helps that the release of Tangled coincided with my rediscovery of and instant fascination with Disney in my late teens, but Tangled is not only my favourite Walt Disney animation of the decade, but my favourite Disney movie of the decade, full stop. And at that, we come to an end of my ranking of the Disney Studio output throughout the 2010s. But now, let me throw it over to you. What are your personal favourite Disney features from the decade, and did I miss out on any of them in my video? Fire away in the comments below, but as always, please remain civil. If this is your first time viewing one of my videos and you'd like to see more like it in the future, then please don't forget to hit that big old subscribe button up on your screen, as well as that like button down below for that little extra support. Also, don't forget to check me out on social media, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic day.